From magnetic outlets that make two grown men hump each other in public, to motorcycle riding automatic humanoid stands that attack you with freezing cold winds when you open something, Jojo's Bizarre Adventure has some insanely bizarre stands that we're going to be going over and ranking in this video here today. With a series like Jojo's that has arguably the most unique power system in anime, it's only right that we take a look at the stands that will make you say, Araki, what the hell were you smoking while riding this? And stay tuned for the stand that's at number 1 because I promise you will not be able to guess what it is. Number 10, we have Tubular Bells from Part 7 Steel Ball Run. The stand user, Mike O, can blow into metal like a balloon and then shape them into things like animals. He can then command these balloons, made of metal, to do basic tasks like hunt someone down based off of their scent, almost like a sniffing dog, if you will. Balloon animals also get the property of balloons even though he blew them out of metal, so they can do things like float around and squeeze between tight spaces. If you haven't read Steel Ball Run, well, first of all, you should. Second of all, you're probably wondering, how does this have any combat utility in the series? Well, once the metal balloon reaches and touches its target, it burrows into it and then reverts to its original form. So for example, Mike O turns a nail into a balloon dog and commands it to get the scent from a telephone. Once it touches the telephone, it dives into it, pops, and then turns back into the nail that it was, which obviously it breaks the phone in the process. Now imagine commanding it to go after a human, it touches the human, turns back into itself after burrowing into the human. That's gonna get graphic, if that happens. No spoilers. Coming in at number 9, we have The Lock from Part 4. My favorite part, by the way. Diamond is unbreakable.
I love Josuke.
The stand literally has no combat ability whatsoever, but it's still pretty dangerous.
In the right hands.
The stand user, Tamami, is a con man that essentially guilt trips you, and this causes a giant lock to appear in your chest. This lock can also grow heavier as you feel more guilty or as he accuses you of doing more wrongdoings to him. And this lock only goes away under 3 conditions. One of them have to be met. 1, you kill yourself because that's how bad the guilt is eating you alive. 2, Tamami takes it off himself if he chooses to, or if you can force him to. 3, you absolve yourself, meaning you repent, if you will. So you can give Tamami some compensation for what he's going through because of your actions, which again, he's fooling you into thinking was your fault. And that essentially makes you feel better as if you're not guilty anymore, or you'd have to come to the realization that he's conning you and that whatever he said you did to him didn't actually happen because of you. He fakes, I believe, knocking out his tooth and getting a bloody nose and blames it on someone else. Once you realize that he faked that, the heart would get away. Overall, a pretty unique stand that weaponizes the weight of your guilt in a literal sense. A really cool power. Coming in at number 8, we have Cat Size from Part 9, The Jojo Lands. Probably didn't think I was gonna read the latest part, huh? But for all 6 people that know about this stand and are caught up, Cat Size belongs to 3 basically identical Siamese-looking cats that roam around Rohan's villa. And yes, Rohan is even in Part 9. These 3 cats all use the same stand together, which makes the fur from their bodies into wire and they can send it after you. And basically once it catches onto you, it tightens more and more over time. It constricts your limbs and it can even wrap around your neck and tighten around your neck, causing you to not be able to breathe. And these strands of wire that came from the cat's fur can actually come together and form things like stitching or a net, so it seems pretty versatile. And what makes this stand so bizarre is the fact that it's not only the stand of a literal cat, but of 3 cats. And these cats act pretty normal, like regular real cats, outside of their stand powers. And I'm speaking from experience as a professional cat owner. If you're enjoying the video so far, make sure that you like and subscribe for more anime and JoJo content, and let's get to the next stand. Number 7, Babyface from Part 5, Golden Wind. This is where stands get freaky, I'm not gonna lie. Babyface is technically the primary computer part of the stand that can produce a secondary stand with a woman of, I believe the stand user's name was Malone, whoever he chooses. Please don't cook me for the pronunciation, I don't speak Italian. But basically, he carefully studies and examines the characteristics of the woman and takes note of things like her age, health, blood type, horoscope, and preferred sex position. What the hell was Araki thinking making this stand? Anyway, if it all checks out, Babyface impregnates the woman, and a few minutes later, the secondary stand or junior comes about. The junior is half stand, half human, because it has stand powers and can interact with other stands, but it also has some characteristics of humans. can be impacted by other regular things like normal stands can't. For example, it can be lit on fire while other stands just phase through fire. And it also has some level of independence because it can freak out and act on its own if it's under pressure like we see in the anime, but regardless, Junior's ability in this instance is a form of matter manipulation. Junior can break things or people apart into cubes and even rearrange them if he wants to. Junior can also take out a certain part of your body as a singular cube like your throat. So overall, a two-part stand where the first one is a computer that impregnates a woman and produces the second stand that is determined based on the woman's characteristics.
Number 6, Milagro Man from Part 8, Jojo.
Again, shout out to my 8 Jojo fans out there. Imagine having your money multiply so much to the point where you can't even carry it because it's too heavy. On top of that, you can't even spend it because it always finds its way back to you no matter what. To just about every normal person, that sounds like a dream and probably the best stand ability ever, but you're gonna accumulate so much money that eventually it's going to crush you and suffocate you and kill you. The stand is so notorious for its ability that the people of Morio consider it a curse, and they know not to take on this curse or accept any of its money, which are bills that end with the serial number 13. On top of that, it doesn't matter what currency you use, it will transform and curse you in any country's currency, whether it's US dollars or Japanese yen, it doesn't matter. There's also no defeating the stand really, it's just a matter of passing the curse on to someone else. The stand user is also dead and the stand lives on, so can't do much about that. So you just gotta find some dumbass like Jojo and pass it on to him. But a stand that can bring you so much money that it can kill you from the amount of money that you have, that's pretty bizarre. Number 5, we have Green Day from Part 5, funny enough, Golden Wind. A stand that can control, emit, and manipulate mold doesn't seem that crazy on paper, but what makes this stand so weird to me is the fact that the mold's effectiveness is kicked in when someone lowers their altitude. I don't really know the correlation between mold and altitude, and I'm not a scientist by any means, but if you are, I'd love to hear that explanation and how Araki came up with that correlation. On top of that, the lower your altitude, the flesh-eating mold spreads amongst living things. The mold spreads between corpses, so Chocolata could really wipe out an entire town pretty easily. And we're not done with this stand's ability just yet. As if altitude-related mold spreading wasn't enough, the user can also use Green Day's mold to control his own severed limbs, which can obviously catch people by surprise. And then he can just call the limbs back together and sew himself back up with that nasty green mold. The fact that Green Day's user is also a literal psychopath murdering maniac does not help with how bizarre that this stand is. Next up at number 4, we have Sky High from Stone Ocean. One of Dio's kids, Rikiel, has a tool that can control these rods or skyfish, almost like a remote control army. We can honestly get into an entire separate video discussing these skyfish or rods because of the amount of history on them that I found while making this video, but I'm gonna try and keep it brief. These skyfish or rods were originally thought to be an undiscovered species, and some even thought it was extraterrestrial because you couldn't catch them or even see them with the human eye. They only appeared in photos and videos, and it looked like rods that were swimming through the air, but it later turned out that these were just regular insects that were flying around at high speeds and gave this visual effect on cameras. But now that we have a brief understanding of where those rods actually came from and their history, let's take a look at the stand ability itself. Sky High controls these propeller-like rods that actually survive off of consuming body heat. If the rods consume enough body heat from a specific body part that the user is targeting, which he has to stay focused for, that specific body part will drop drastically in temperature, which can cause for the organ there to fail or get disease. So for example, you can use the rods to take body heat from your eyelids, forcing them to fail and close so that you can't see, or even more extreme, focus the rods on your brainstem and make your heart and sensory systems fail, causing you to die. He can also use it on himself so he can take away the feelings of things like shock or pain by numbing his nerves. Not only is the whole skyfish rod phenomenon crazy with all the history behind it, but the way they're used in combat in JoJo's is just crazy to think about. Send this video to someone that has not watched JoJo's before so they can see how crazy stand power can really get. Number 3, we have Wired from Steel Ball Run. Shout out to the gyro hat. Not only is this stand pretty weird in terms of power, but the user himself, 1, looks weird, and 2, his name is Pork Pie Hat Kid. which is of course a musical reference. Wired is essentially really strong and fast moving hooks, and the hooks can go through objects basically as a portal, traveling through different dimensions and grabbing onto you or whatever else Pork Pie Hat Kid may choose to target. And just be aware that the hooks are strong enough to rip a snake apart and even lift up an entire human being off the floor. These hooks can literally come from anything, whether it's feathers of a bird or even the insects around you. And as if the stand power wasn't bizarre enough, what makes it even more bizarre is the fact that these teleporting hooks that can rip you apart come from a winch that's inside of the stand user's mouth. Number 2, Ozone Baby from Jojo. This ugly dude here is named Poor Tom and has a stand named Ozone Baby. Although he looks like a baby, he's actually a grown-ass man whose stand is a literal Lego set of the White House. No, seriously. Once you bury the Lego set underground, the stand activates and becomes more humanoid-esque and manipulates the atmospheric pressure within a 100-meter radius. And again, at first it doesn't sound too crazy, but as the air pressure slowly increases in sealed rooms and containers start crushing in on themselves, and you start bleeding from the nose with ear pain, you'd probably start panicking and run outside of that room. The issue with this is that once you leave the sealed room, depressurization kicks in. The air in your blood vessels form bubbles and causes bleeding in your capillaries, so you start gushing blood from your eyes, nose, and ears. And it can even make your eyes burst out of their sockets. You can go back into the sealed room to make it stop if you want, but even staying in there too long will kill you too, because the pressure will make your body cave in on itself and crumple like a can of soda. He's also a doctor in obstetrics, talks to multiple women while having a girlfriend, and also uses his height to look up women's skirts. Jojo in itself is a very bizarre part, and this doesn't even include the fact that the main Jojo has 4 balls in that part, but let's continue. Before we get to number 1 on this list, let me know if you think I'm missing anyone, or if you would rearrange the order, move things around, what you think in the comments below. It was very hard actually making this list and ranking everything, and I tried to include both anime and manga and include something from each part, so it was more difficult than it seems, believe it or not. But coming in at number 1, we have Lion Eyes from Part 9, The Jojo Lands. The stand user, Lame Shebang, which I know I'm butchering the pronunciation, I'm sorry, has pet nematodes that she actually raised as pets, and they stick to her sunglasses. You can also see the nematodes with your bare human eyes, so there's no microscope needed. Lion Eyes lets her control these nematodes, which can detect the scent of someone lying, form a map to indicate when someone is afraid, and stack up on each other to show how severe their lie is. And no, staying silent is not an option when she asks you a question, because the nematodes can still tell that you're afraid, and that's a dead giveaway. If you tell the truth though, the nematodes will simply go away and disperse. This stand could also possibly have even more powers that we currently don't know about because of the fact that it's the current arc that we're on in the Jojo Lands. But it is what inspired me to make this whole video, because when I was reading it, it really made me stop and think that Araki gotta be smoking some good shit to think of a pet nematode, lie-smelling, glasses-living stand. But that's it for this video. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, because I put way more time into this video than I honestly should have, researching every stand from every part and then ranking them and all that. I played around with the order. It was a lot. And a huge shout out to the Jojo Wiki for refreshing my memory on some of these stands, because it's been a while since I read parts 7 and 8. But comment what stands you think should have made the list for the most bizarre stands in this series. And I will see you guys in the next video.